Do not visit rural Appalachia. From unknown. For starters, this is off the record. I wasn't here. I will give a fake name. I will give fake locations. If anyone tries to contact me, I will do what I have to protect my family. This is a warning, nothing more. Do not travel to rural Appalachia. My name is Deepu. Well, it's Hoover. I'm a former sheriff's deputy. I'm 29 years old and I'm already retired with a full pension. It's hush money, really. I'm putting my family and livelihood at risk by posting this, but I can't stomach the thought of some dipshit city slicker going to those mountains and it happening to them. Was a deputy for Unicoi County, Tennessee. It's a gorgeous place. Watching that sunrise over the mountains was an almost spiritual event. I never thought I would leave until it happened. It happened the fall of last year. Strange because I remember it was particularly crisp, beautiful autumn. The leaves had changed and the entire valley was surrounded by an enchanting sea, awash with reds and hues of orange. I was at the station filling out some paperwork and drinking my evening coffee with Richards, my partner. He was a good guy. New in town as he and his family had just moved from Montgomery, and I took him under my wing. He was kind of deputy who stick his neck out for you. He didn't mind putting in the extra hours so you could leave early. He was my best friend. Around 7 and we got a call for a 130 code for a dead body up the mountain in a campsite. That's not particularly surprising. Unicoi is well known for its population of bears and bobcats. It typically would happen once or twice a year that some hotshot yuppie would come in with 10 grand of worth of equipment and get mauled by a predator while cooking. When we got to the campsite, I'm pretty embarrassed to say, my first thought was to give whoever it was a little bit of credit. They picked an amazing spot with a view over the entire valley. But then I saw them. There wasn't one body, there was 5. 1 adult man and 1 female with 3 little girls. The man was leaned up against a tree next to their tent. His head was so slashed to hell I could see chunks of skull jutting out of the mound that was his face. The woman didn't fare much better, she was shredded. Her torso and head was about 3 feet from the tent, with some jumbled mush I imagine was probably her legs laying a few yards away. It was sickening, and the hardest part of the job. But I didn't realize this was something else until we found the girls about 100 yards away. They were stacked, well, what was left of them, neatly on a rock down the slope of the mountain. Their organs and dismembered body parts painted the boulder red with still drying blood. Deputy Davis, who made the call, was nowhere to be found. It was getting dark, the kind of suffocating darkness that swallows you and doesn't let you breathe. What or who ever did this was still out here. I told Richards we needed to get back to the truck and call in backup and a rescue team to look for Davis. As Richards and I started back up the slope, I saw it. Sitting on a branch of an old oak tree near him was a woman, or what I thought was a woman, with gray cold skin and a sinister crooked smile. Before I could even speak, she had already pounced savagely, screaming and slashing with her demon-like talon that forked unnaturally from her hand. I drew my service pistol and fired 8 times in a tight cluster in her side. She didn't even so much as pause her rampage. I think it's Richard's screams that haunt me the most. His whimpered howls reminded me of a coyote caught in a trap an animal who knows it's about to die. I could see the tears streaming down his blood and sweat-soaked face. His eyes were bloodshot and bulging. I froze. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't even process what I was seeing. Some sort of demon from hell itself who came to slaughter. something unnatural. She finally stopped and turned towards me. When I became a deputy, I knew that I could die on duty, but I couldn't fathom it was be from something like this. I'm ashamed to admit at that moment I had accepted my death. I turned my service pistol at my head and was about to pull the trigger to avoid a fate like Richard's when she was just gone. Like that. Like mist in the air, leaving me alone with the corpse of my closest friend on the slope of the mountain. As I carried his bloodied carcass up of the mountain to the truck, all I could see was that scene in my head. It seared into my mind. When I called for backup instead of the sheriff's office, several large black vans showed up filled with unidentified men in suits. I was told to quit my job, move, and to never speak of what happened, and I would receive a hefty retirement package. I took the deal. I don't know why she didn't kill me. It haunts me. I can't sleep. I can't eat. All I see is her ripping apart Richards. The day before I left, I spoke with some Cherokee elders, and they told me it was something they call Atlunta, a demon who stalks the Appalachians hunting her prey. Whatever it was, I'm begging whoever reads this don't go visit the Appalachian Mountains. It's not worth it. Don't let her get you too. My brother left to hike the Appalachian Mountains. What came back isn't him. From D. My brother, Kevin, not his real name, I am trying to keep some anonymity, has always been outdoorsy. Growing up, he would wander off into the woods behind my parents' property and stay out there for hours. He said that being out in nature brought him a lot of peace. A few months ago, things kind of spiraled for him. He lost his girlfriend, his job, and his apartment within 6 weeks. He ended up moving back home with me and my parents to try and get back on his feet. It was hard to see him like that. I mean, he was never someone I would describe as an eternal optimist. But that little spark he always had was gone. This past spring, I found him sitting at the kitchen table in the middle of the night. He was picking apart a piece of cold pizza, and it was the first time I had seen him almost eat something in days. I told him maybe he should get back out into nature, take some hikes, or maybe do a solo camping weekend. I said that I had noticed he had seemed down lately, and maybe being out in the world could help me get back to himself. In the moment, I wasn't sure if he was really hearing me, but he took a bite of pizza, squeezed my hand, said he loved me, and went back to his bedroom. The next morning, he announced to my parents he was going to hike the Appalachian Trail. My mom was hesitant, but Kevin told her that he knew enough about himself to know that sitting at home in his room was causing more stress than if he could go out and just be in the place that made him feel most at ease. My dad just said that as long as Kev checked in every few days or so, he didn't see a problem with it. My dad pointed out that it wasn't like Kevin didn't have the experience. He was a Boy Scout, turned Eagle Scout, turned camping enthusiast. People do that hike all the time, Kathleen. If it were dangerous, no one would be bragging about it. I remember him saying those words exactly. I don't know why they stuck in my head the way they did, but maybe it was the way Kevin seemed to brighten up a little bit after my dad gave his blessing in a sort of roundabout way. The next 2 weeks were spent helping my brother pack what he would need, registering his hike, and buying a plane ticket to Georgia, where he would start his trip. The night he left, our mom was a mess. She kept fussing over him as if he wasn't a full-grown man. She kept asking him if he had everything he needed, and he just kept assuring her he did and would check in with us once he got to Trailhead. Looking back now, he seemed genuinely excited. If I had known what would happen, I would never let him leave. My brother called like he said he would, just as he was beginning his trip. He even sent a photo in our family group chat that showed him up against a backdrop of purple-blue mountains and lush greenery. He had a thumbs up and his signature slightly off-center smirk. He wrote, "Finally made it. Love you guys. Talk when I get better reception." Over the next few days, Kevin would send a photo or video, usually of his surroundings, but occasionally he would send a selfie with the caption, "Proof of life." But as the days wore on, we stopped getting updates as frequently. What was a text at least once a day became a text once every 3 or 4 days. My dad blamed it on spotty cell reception, which made sense, and it wasn't as if the messages stopped altogether, and from what I could piece together from his photos and short text bursts, he was making good time. It was around a month and a half into his trip when we realized it had been almost 2 weeks without any communication from Kevin. We called the authorities. We gave them all the information that we had. But based on what we knew, it was hard to say he was even missing. As far as the police were concerned, he had gone off-grid with the intent of going off-grid. Sending out search and rescue would cost thousands of dollars, and it could be a waste of resources, especially if there was someone else who needed it. They said they would put a notice out to the Ridge Runners, and if they saw Kevin, they were told to tell him to contact us. My mom was furious, but I couldn't necessarily blame the cops for their response. We had no evidence to support that Kev was anything but content out in the wilderness. A few days later, a text came through, just a photo of sunset and the words, "Everything is okay here." That began the new normal of communication with my brother. There would be long stretches of time where we would hear nothing, just long enough for my mother to start panicking. And then we would get a blurry photo and a generic caption like, "Look what I saw today," or "Wish you were here." One night, while going through the photos he had sent, I realized in the background of every shot from before we had called the police was a black smudge. It was too blurry to properly make it out, and it didn't seem to be an animal or something caught moving in the camera lens. But after the first photo he had sent after we thought he was missing, the smudge was gone. Kevin came home earlier than expected. He also hadn't told anyone his plans. One night during dinner, there was a loud, sharp knock at the door. My dad got up to answer it, and there was Kevin. His hair was long and stringy. He had grown a patchy beard over his cheeks and jaw. His lips were dry and cracked, and his gums were coated in a dried layer of blood. He was rail thin. He had lost at least 30 pounds, and he wasn't a large man to begin with. His clothes were filthy, caked in mud and debris, and his shorts looked like they had been worn thin at the sole. My mother made a sound almost like a yelp and rushed over to him. The smell coming off him made me gag. It smelled like he had smeared rotting meat under his armpits. My dad just looked at him in shock. When he finally spoke, his voice was dry and raspy, as if he hadn't used it in weeks. "Mom." That was all he could say before he practically collapsed in her arms. I won't bore you guys with everything that happened after that. There was a lot of hugging, some tears, and then a very, very long shower. But something didn't feel right. Kev went to bed pretty much immediately after. He barely even looked at us. The next morning, he ate breakfast with a ferocity that made my skin crawl. He was gulping down huge mouthfuls of food, barely stopping to breathe. My mom just kept piling his plate with bacon, eggs, and toast. He stopped only after he had consumed a whole loaf of bread, 2 packages of bacon, and nearly 2 dozen eggs. I tried to ask him about the trip, tried to get him to say anything at all, really. But all I got were grunts and uh-huhs before he lumbered back off to his bedroom. The next few days were more the same. Kev eating an insane amount of food, sleeping for hours, and then mumbling his way through conversations. It took about a week for him to start communicating like a human being again. But even then it was stilted, awkward, unnatural. He's been home for almost a month now and something isn't right. His voice, it changed somehow. It's still his voice, but it's like there's a second voice buried underneath it, like someone is trying to harmonize while he speaks. He lumbers around the house like his knees are locked in place, but he refuses to go to the doctors. The worst part is the smell. It still won't go away. No matter how often or how long he showers, he still reeks like death. I could have maybe ignored all of this, maybe blame it on being isolated in the woods for weeks. But after what happened tonight, I couldn't sleep. That feeling of fear in my stomach I felt ever since he's been back hasn't gone away. And honestly, it keeps me up most nights. I was trying to will myself to sleep when I heard the back door creak open. I crept out of my bedroom and down the hall. From my viewpoint, I could see into the kitchen through the window into the backyard. I saw my brother, perched on his hands and knees. He was twitching wildly, like every muscle in his neck and head were spasming. He widened his stance and thrashed his head towards the ground and out of my line of sight. I was worried that maybe he was having some kind of seizure, so I ran out to check on him, and that when I saw it. His head was buried deep into the carcass of one of our neighbor's cats. He was chomping down on its tiny body, blood oozing out between the gaps in his teeth. The thing had clearly been dead for at least a day or so. Its body bloated, and its eyes were dull and hazy. Kevin reached inside the cat's body and started to strip off pieces of muscle and tendon, slurping them up the same way he had been eating our mother's cooking. Pressing his thumb into the thing's skull, he popped out one of its eyes and tossed it back like a grape. I ran back into the house and locked the door behind me. I was about to run back to my bedroom when that smell hit me, that horrible death stench that had been wafting around my brother. I opened the door to his room and inched a few feet inside. Wrapped in his bedding were the decaying bodies of 20 or so animals, rabbits, mice, squirrels. I tried to run to my parents' room, to wake them up, to tell that we needed to call someone. As I turned around, I saw Kevin in the kitchen window, his body drenched in blood. He was eyeing me through the glass, his head tilted at an angle that shouldn't be possible. The vertebrae in his neck strained underneath his skin. He lunged at the window and I screamed. My parents woke up then. They found me in the hallway, sobbing, sweating, shaking with fear. I told them what I saw, and my dad rushed outside to try and, well, I don't know exactly what he was trying to do, but it didn't matter. My brother was gone. We called the police, and they said it sounded like my brother had had some sort of mental crisis. Maybe he had picked up some kind of parasite in the woods that was impacting his brain chemistry. I know they're wrong, though. Whatever that thing is, it is not my brother. My brother left for the Appalachian Trail and never came back. I think whatever that black smudge was in those photos was something that hunted him. And I think it was successful. Whatever that thing was, killed my brother, and somehow his body came back home. My brother disappeared. But I am terrified he will come back. Part 2. I didn't think I would be making an update, but I figured it was the right thing to do since all of you were so supportive when I posted a few days ago. It all came to a head, I guess, and my family and I are currently living in the worst-case scenario. My parents and the cops were still organizing search parties in the woods surrounding our house. Their working theory was that Kevin had some sort of underlying mental health issue that was made worse by the weeks of isolation on the trail. They also think that maybe he could have been given something or taken something while out there. and the chemical reaction of whatever drug caused some sort of psychosis. I couldn't bring myself to tell them that that thing wasn't my brother. All the comments on my last post made that pretty clear. I don't think I can say that I had accepted the fact he was gone at that point. But I knew whatever we found of him, if we found anything at all, would not be my brother. Well, we did find him. It happened last night. It was late, but my parents were still out with the police and sniffer dogs in the woods. I was told to stay home in case he came back while they were gone. I was sitting in the living room, keeping an eye on the side yard where the woods start to get thicker, when I heard this weird thunking sound. It was slow and paced evenly like a metronome. Thunk, pause, thunk, pause, thunk. From my viewpoint in the living room, I could see a shadow cast across the dining room table, backlit from the streetlights outside. My parents' house is sort of a U-shape. You can walk a circle around the first floor, going from kitchen to dining room to living room and back again. I slipped off the couch and sort of crouch walked my way into the kitchen. From there, I had enough of a cover from the wall dividing the living room and dining room so that I could see the bay window that looked out across the front yard. There was my brother, or rather the thing pretending to be my brother. He was standing in front of the window, rocking back and forth on his heels. He walked to close and his forehead would clunk against the window, thunk. Then he would step back almost like it had surprised him, pause, and then rock forward again, thunk. He looked awful. His skin was sallow and slick with sweat, which made no sense since it's November in New England. It hasn't been above 50 degrees in weeks. His lips were crusted over with blood, and I knew enough at that point to know it wasn't his. The worst thing, though, were his eyes. They were this sickly pale blue. The lenses looked cataract, and his pupils were dilated, unfocused points. My breath hitched in the back of my throat, and my heart felt like it was gonna fall out of my stomach. I kept my eyes trained on him as I reached for my cell phone and tried to dial 911. The phone trilled and I waited for the operator to pick up. There was soft click and then, "Middleton County, 911, do you need fire, police, or ambulance?" I started to speak and then suddenly, Kevin seemed to focus on me. Maybe he had heard my voice. His clouded eyes seemed to laser focus for a moment, training on me crouched behind the wall. I wasn't sure if he could see me. He shouldn't have been able to from his position, but the thunking became louder and more urgent. I gave the operator my name and address. Kevin began to bang into the window faster and faster. I tried to explain that my missing brother was back, but that something was wrong, that he was trying to do something. The crack of the window pane was the loudest sound I'd ever heard. I watched as my brother slammed his head again and again into the glass. Blood smeared across his forehead, and then the cracking turned to a smash as my brother crashed through the pane. I screamed. I dropped my phone and I ran. The only room in my parents' house with a lock is the bathroom, so I scrambled to get there and lock the door. Once I was there, I could hear Kevin falling through the broken window and lumbering around the house. His feet sounded unnaturally heavy, like they were waterlogged. I could hear the crunching sound of broken glass under feet, and I looked around for something, anything, I could use as a weapon. I just kept telling myself I would not go down without a fight. As quietly as I could, I took the cover off the back of the toilet tank. It was heavy and made of porcelain, and I figured that even if it didn't kill that thing, hopefully it would at least stun it enough to give me time to make a break for it. I could hear him outside the door, sniffing the air like a dog. I held my breath and readied myself. There was nothing for a few moments. No sounds of walking or sniffing. I waited a few more seconds before I knelt to the ground and peered under the gap in the door. My brother's dead eye stared back at me. I screamed as the door began to bulge as that thing shoved its shoulder into the frame. I grabbed the tank cover again, readied myself. That's when I heard the sirens. I could hear shouting from outside and the stomping of boots across the smashed glass. The thing wouldn't stop. It kept throwing itself against the door. I heard one of the cops yell, "Taser!" and then a rapid clicking noise. There was more shouting, more clicking, and then one of them said, "Stop, or we will shoot." The thing outside the door paused for a moment, and then it charged at the officers. I could hear its heavy feet lurch across the floor. That's when I heard the gunshots. This is where I sort of black out. From what the cops tell me, they were able to get me out of the bathroom. My parents were called back in from the woods and were told their son had been found trying to attack their daughter. They were told that he had been killed after he attempted to attack an officer. We're staying in a hotel now, close to the station. They are going to interview us all again in the morning. They plan on doing an autopsy on my brother. My parents haven't said a word to me since we got here. I think they blame me. I wasn't the one to shoot my brother, but I was the person who called the man who did. I don't know if you all were hoping for some kind of miracle where we get a happy ending, but this is it. Maybe I'll update you all again after the autopsy report is finalized, but honestly, I think it's best to just let it go. My brother Kevin was kind, funny, smart, and most of all adventurous. He wasn't that thing that came home to us. My brother died out on the trail, not bleeding out on the floor in the house we grew up in. I don't think we'll ever have answers unless maybe some of you have them. Hold your loved ones tight tonight. Rest in peace, big brother. I helped a Wendigo, and I regretted it. By T. When this happened, I was living in a small town with lots of forest nearby. It was small, and everybody was friendly with each other, living in an area where everyone knows everyone. My ma and pa didn't really take stranger danger seriously. Don't hop in a stranger's van. Don't take candy from people you don't know well, is the most I was told. Being young at the time, I was taught this. I wasn't told why. I wasn't told of how monstrous humans could truly be. In my innocent mind, I saw no reasons for a person to want to hurt others. I believed this for most other creatures too. I wasn't afraid of animals or insects, so it was no surprise that this would have happened, seeing how stupid I was. It was in early spring and I was going for a usual walk through the neighborhood and into the local woods. Admiring the flowers and listening to the birds' calls, I was drawn further into the darkness that was that fucking forest. Soon I didn't even know where I was. The trees weren't familiar. I was deeper into the woods then. I'd gone before. And just before I traced my steps back home, I heard something. Help. The voice was dry, raspy, and quiet. It sounded strained, like whoever was speaking felt pain to do so. I turned back, trying to find out who or what was calling for me, although my innocent mind was certain it was a person. Over here. I followed the voice and soon found the creature in front of me, its long limbs wrapped in the thorny brambles it was trapped in, its face covered by its long, blood-soaked hair. Please, help me, child. Despite what I wanted to do, my gut told me not to go closer to it. It was dangerous. I ignored the feeling as I tried to remove the brambles from the creature's body. I only succeeded in cutting my hands. "I can't get you out," I sadly told the creature. "Try harder. You don't want me to die here, do you?" It shook its head, removing the few vines I'd managed to pull off its antlers. "Of course I don't want you to die." I then remembered my mother's pruning shears. I'd seen her use them to cut plants before, so they should work, right? "I'll be right back. I can get some tools to cut you free." As I got up to leave, it grabbed my leg. "Don't go. I'll be lonely. We can free me later." The creature pulled me back down to the ground. I stared at it again, noticing all the bones poking through its skin. That's all it really was. Skin and bones. Breaking the eerie silence, it spoke again. "My name is Anoki. What is yours?" I didn't hesitate to respond. "I'm T." After that, we started to talk more, until the sun started going down. Then I went home. That night I stayed awake in bed, wondering about my new friend. How did he get stuck there anyway? The next day, I brought the pruning shears, and with some effort, I removed the brambles. Anoki never thanked me for the help. He just tried to stand up, but he was too wounded to move. I innocently asked, "Do you want me to go get my parents? They have Band-Aids." But he shook his head. "I need more than that. I need food to get stronger." And so I ran home and got some food, mostly biscuits and some bread. "I can't eat that." He turned away from the food in disgust. "What do you eat then?" He looked around and then pointed at a small bird. It had gotten tangled in the nearby brambles. It was thrashing around trying to get free. "Go get that for me." I remember feeling scared in that moment. I loved birds. Whenever I found a wounded one, I'd try to take care of it before my pa would take it to the vet, while secretly just putting it down. But without even realizing what I was doing, I'd already removed the bird from the brambles. I watched in horror as Anoki ate the poor thing. He didn't seem to like it, but he did anyway. I kept visiting him every day, bringing him more birds or other poor animals for weeks. He was looking better each day, yet still bone thin. Until eventually I came to him with another bird. He wasn't sitting in the place he always sat. I called out for him, but he didn't come. Then I heard the trees above me shake. I looked up just in time to run as it jumped down and chased after me. It caught up to me in no time. It had longer legs and was faster, and it grabbed my leg, and its claws sunk into me. I screamed and screamed until half of the local neighborhood came running into the woods. One or two even had guns. But Anoki got away before he could be killed. I never set foot into the woods again. After I was patched up and told my story to the local newspaper, I was told about what Anoki really was. A Wendigo. I was told I was goddamn lucky to have gotten away, but stupid to have even helped him. My parents moved away after that, and I was properly taught about stranger danger.